If you haven't heard about Anchor by Spotify, it's the easiest way to make a podcast with everything that you need all in one place. Let me explain. Anchor has tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. When hosting on Anchor, you can distribute your podcast on any listening platform like Spotify, Apple Podcast, and many, many more. It's everything that you need to make a podcast all in one place. And best of all, Anchor is totally free. Download the Anchor app today or go to anchor.fm to get started. From Battlefield Studio Alpha, welcome to the Wartime Leadership Podcast, where we explore what spiritual resilience looks like from different perspectives. We often focus on the physical, emotional, and social areas of resiliency, but too often we neglect the spiritual pillar. Now, this looks different for everyone. We will be exploring what spiritual resilience looks like through the lives of our guests, who are people from all different walks of life. I'm your host, Nathan Coy, and today's episode is sponsored by Success Draft, where we help you turn your dreams into drafted plans. Head over to successdraft.com to get started on your future today. Today's guest is BrandonDavid, and Brandon comes to us at a very strategic time. This is the second episode of the new year, and we're doing this three-part episode called New Year, New Money. And Brandon is a connector of people. That is what his entire life is centered around, is being able to connect different people and different things. BrandonDavid, how are you today?
Hey, Nathan, honored to be here. Amazing.
Hey. Every single time I see you, hey. Hey, Brandon. So where are you coming to us right now? Because you're all over the place. You're in Nashville, Cleveland, blah, blah. Where are you at right now?
Well, I'm in Miami Beach, South Beach. Yes, sir.
Ooh. Is that Muscle Beach or is that California?
It's it's an amazing spot.
Oh,
It's
absolutely.
an amazing place, amazing people. It's got an international cultural feel to it, and definitely amazing, blessed place to be.
Yeah, you definitely got the food capital of the world going on down there with all the different types of cultures coming together and making new types of food and fusion at its best.
You can't count out Cleveland though, man. Cleveland's that melting pot. So as much as I do, I'm getting to love the Miami food.
Oh,
Cleveland, I
yeah.
still got that Cleveland, Nashville, Hattie B's hot chicken and all that. Yours truly in Cleveland.
So you
But
kind of
but yeah,
one place to the other, kind of between Nashville, Miami, Cleveland. You're kind of all over that area of the country specifically.
well, I'm here in Miami now. Cleveland's where I'm from. Nashville's like that long term home, and Miami is the now. Miami, for multiple reasons, is there's a convergence of technology and entertainment, government, all that stuff coming together here, and finance. And this is the place now to
Absolutely.
definitely be.
So before we get too much into this, we gotta bring it back a little bit. Now, Brandon and I know each other very, very well. We actually met during what is known as, I guess, the Shark Tank type of episodes with a good friend of ours, Mr. Paul Alou, the teacher, the man of men, because man, this guy knows a whole lot about business. He's actually the owner of Success Draft. He's the one that owns that company that sponsors us currently. And so we know each other. but our audience doesn't necessarily know you. So we're gonna throw out some random questions here from the random question generator. Shark diving, bungee jumping, or skydiving?
Oh, that's good. Shark diving, skydiving, or bungee skydiving.
Have you done it?
Not yet.
Not yet. All right, so then why skydiving?
Yeah, it's probably a trust factor. It's yeah, it's whether as long as I trust that parachute, as long as I know I got and it's like Tom Petty said, free falling.
Yeah, I could just imagine you actually playing that on the guitar all the way down. If you could invite 5 people, dead or alive, to a dinner party, who would those 5 be and why?
That's good. Well, Bob Marley, Johnny Cash,
Mm.
Kanye West, um, Steve. Let's see. Oh, William Wilberforce
Oh, wow.
and Dr. Miles Monroe.
Wow, that is definitely an eclectic group of individuals. That is a lot of different mindsets, a lot of different music history. Why those 5 specifically?
Uh, you know, um, well, so Johnny Cash, he was a reformed rebel. He was somebody who knew the dark. He was introduced to the light as a young child, but knew the crossroads. Knew he struggled, but his legacy in his latter life and longevity, it lives out. He's reaching more people now than he's and will reach more now than he ever even reached while he was alive. He's just got a real story, and he was very much about prison reform, the things of the day. He always looked at his opportunity in the spotlight to shine a light on other people that might not get the spotlight and causes. Um, so so we have Johnny Cash, we have
Bob Marley.
Bob Marley the same. Just like if they could have got together back then, I mean, who knows what they could have done together. But I believe it was 56 Hope Street. Bob Marley was definitely another reformer, somebody who learned and grew wiser. And even putting Kanye West in the mix, is these are all 3 people that were at one point their lives were dominated by centralized systems, that they found their freedom. They all found their ultimate freedom from the same source. And I believe the fourth one, who was the fourth one? I know I said
You
Dr.
had,
Miles Monroe,
and you had
but
Wilberforce.
and William Wilberforce. And William Wilberforce, grew up in politics and was definitely somebody there's somebody today would say he was privileged, but he challenged himself. His best friend, who was the first prime minister, the youngest prime minister that ever lived, challenged him and said, "Hey, we're coming into power. We're not too young. We're too young to know that we can't change the world. So let's go and change the world." And there were so many changes that they made, from the transatlantic slave trade, helping abolish that, but to the even compassion for animals and all those kind of things, looking after the poor, changes to society. There was, I believe, 96 different reforms that they caused by the end of their lives. And it was a group called the Claphams that William Wilberforce helped start. And then, Dr. Miles Monroe is like, he is one of those people that still many people don't know, but should. And his leadership and his relationships with other leaders and business, kingdom business, his mindset, his practical teaching, but infused with power, it would be amazing to have those guys at the table, sharing, connecting, solving, empowering, and let's do it. If we could get it as a live stream, that would be great.
Oh man. Oh man. Think about that. Think about those minds just sitting there talking. I mean, Who would have thought like having a Bob Marley next to a Miles Monroe, just to think about
Holy
what
moly.
could have happened with that connection.
Yeah.
I mean, Miles Monroe is still very active in a lot of people's bookshelves to this day. You know, his words are still like holding that. I mean, Mozart last night, the conversation, Mozart had a really good point about his words being so powerful and holding on to people's hearts still to this day.
Yeah.
Absolutely amazing. Okay, so what is your superhero's name? Your superhero name.
My superhero's name? Jesus, because he rose from the grave.
Touche. Okay, then let me flip this a little bit. What would, if you were a superhero, what would your superhero name be?
BrandonDavid.
And said just like that, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Here I am. I have come to save the day. Super David. Oh, okay. Well, BrandonDavid is here. Okay. Good to know. And just so everybody knows, today, on this day, 31 December, in the year of our Lord, 2022, this is the day that we're recording for this January episode. Today is Brandon's birthday.
Yeah.
Happy
Yeah,
birthday.
I thank my mom for that. It's her birthday. She helped birth me, carried me for 9 months. And John Maxwell was saying recently, his dad instilled in him, that you always need help in life. Even when you came into this world, you owe your mother 9 months rent because she housed you. So, you know, thank God for my mom, for my dad, for, those people that helped raise me over the years, but especially my mom. She, in knowing the love of God, knowing love in many ways is the way she cherishes those moments and she continues. I used to think that was annoying. Now I'm starting to really digest it because you realize, no, there's a strong connection there with the love of a mother, the fact that they know you, they carried you, and saw past all the mess.
Yeah, and it's really, I'll tell you, Brandon, from my perspective, when you become a parent, you really grab onto that. It's when you become an adult, you start to see it, you start to go, okay, and you start to understand that perspective a lot more. But then the moment that you become a parent, it's like a ton of bricks hitting you, like, oh my gosh, like you have got to listen to me. And then you're like, oh wow, that was what my dad used to say to me. Then it just kind of hits even more. You start to learn the love of a parent is so much bigger than you could ever possibly imagine. So uh one final question. In your opinion, what is the best Disney movie to come out since Disney's golden age?
Man, you know, the first one that stood out to me when you asked that is, and I'm sure there's other amazing ones. There's tons of amazing Disney movies that have come out over the years, but The Lion King, for some reason stands out to me as one of, if not the greatest Disney movie that was ever put out.
Yeah, Stanley, my son, is actually over here on the floor, and as soon as he heard Lion King, he's like, yes, yes.
Hey,
He's over here all lifting him up above his head. I'm like, okay.
hey,
Stanley agrees with you. He agrees with you. He's actually lifting Zoe above his head right now, our little
hey,
Morky dog. So,
hey,
all right. Hey,
amazing.
Brandon, getting to know you, getting to understand you, seeing what your perspective is. How about this? Let's jump into your background. Tell us where you've been, what you've been through in life. Kind of, it's your time, it's your testimony, it's your story. Kind of just bring
Wow.
us from the past up to date, brother. Just bring us through whatever you want to. All right.
Yeah, yeah. Well, from the womb, I think most who got to know me as a little kid, they knew I was curious. So I was into like Curious George, and then Zach Morris from Saved by the Bell and Ferris Bueller and all that stuff. So I was definitely, that curiosity was good, definitely. But at the same time, got me in some trouble. And I had some good teachers and I had some not so good teachers. and that bent towards looking up to the class clown, or just like Ferris Bueller. Like, it was cool in Ferris Bueller to see him skip school and go on that adventure, but what was portrayed wasn't always the consequences. So I experienced consequences, and I was blessed to experience some extreme consequences. Kind of farther down I went, sports was a big deal for me. That helped me. Some of the same stuff I could apply today for success and for life and longevity, I could trace back to my love for sports, for basketball. Played multiple sports, but I just fell in love with basketball. And when my curious partying lifestyle and getting into all that stuff as a youth started to compete with my discipline when it came to basketball, when I would no longer had basketball, I was off and running. There was nothing really inside me holding me back from not going all the way into that world. So I found myself at parties. I found myself at, it was just radical, in a lot of trouble. And in that, I was really blessed that there was consequences early on, because I got introduced to recovery and principles and things that most kids, young people didn't get access to. So that season of my life planted some seeds. So when I really found music became a way to express myself in ways that I didn't know how to speak. From being a fan at concerts, jam bands, when Napster started putting out all that music, and it was groups like Jack Johnson and OAR and
Oh yeah.
Robert Randolph, that I found a sense of freedom at those concerts and in those communities. And I found myself on stage with some of the same bands that I would used to look up to. I found myself opening for and applying gifts in my life to putting together a band. Had mentors, and some healthy, some not so healthy, and music became that mode of transportation. And it was really through a relationship with my friend Marty Masnick, who was a violin player, that he was diagnosed with cancer. And when he passed, I was either going to live or die. But Marty died, I got to live. But his message of love, he had a he had a just basic raw faith in Christ, and I didn't really understand that. But it was like I found the cross at the crossroads, even when that wasn't what I thought I was looking for. But it was love. It was love I was looking for. And when Marty passed, that led to me going full on into recovery and restoration. And I was introduced to amazing, amazing people, some who've been on our More Than Masterminds calls, and people like Rob Critchlow and Orlando Vicarone, and so many amazing people came alongside me. And and that's where I started applying that to music. I started applying it to business, to entrepreneurship. And I became very passionate about artists, empowering artists, not just being on stage, not just putting people on stage, but empowering people beyond the stage, and applying those John Maxwell principles and what I'd learned in recovery and my newfound faith. And it just kept, through the bumps in the roads, through the ups and downs, through being willing to give up what I could not keep to gain what I could never lose. I found some of those former seasons, even coming into this new season, I see those things, they're intersecting. All those different circles, all those different seasons have had their purpose. And we're just, so being able to apply that and have something to give to the business community, to artists, to entrepreneurs, to the future.
So you said you would be opening up for these bands. What instruments do you play? Because I said
I play
instruments because
guitar.
I
Yeah,
know you
it,
play.
yeah. It didn't start like that, but keys, hand drums, and guitar. I would say those are my go tos, and they all have different purposes. And therapeutic. And music was always, I could say, that was a major therapeutic tool, and continues to be. All those, in my life, and when I felt so frustrated, Sometimes it was picking up. We had a good friend help make sure a guitar got to me right in time, and that was the outlet that helped me put some music and put some words to what I didn't know how to describe.
So, what would you say if you were to choose a song of your life, like one song that could describe your life, that you when you hear it or when you play it, just pulls on every emotion because you've seen the music in your life? What song would it be?
Wow. I have a like a new version of it that I'm working on. Um, but there's many thousands of versions of it. I would say Amazing Grace. And I can't say that I always get that feeling because sometimes it could seem cliche, but I will say the song Amazing Grace, and what it means to me now.
No,
And it's more about the wretch. It's more, yeah, yeah. So there'll be there's a new song to hear in 2023 that incorporates that I'm working on.
see, and I
And
know
yeah,
Brandon. I didn't even know that. I know Brandon, and I didn't even know that he was working on a new version. So that's good stuff, brother. I'm excited
yes,
because
sir.
I know where your heart comes from when it comes to that. So, um, now you currently are sitting as really a big influential person in the Y Web3, and not necessarily from what you know, but what you know of others and how you're able to piece those together. So, what are you doing now between Nashville, Cleveland, and Miami?
Yeah. So being in Miami is more about Cleveland and Nashville than probably people would think. But Cleveland's got amazing innovation for years and decades. And our friends at the Ohio DAO and at Futureland, led by Mayor Justin Bibb, they have this belief in Cleveland. And Cleveland was big in the Industrial Revolution. But like my friends at the Ohio DAO had said at one of their first big launches in Ohio, in the Cleveland area over the summer, they said, look, Cleveland was in on the Industrial Revolution, helped change the world. It marked the Midwest, kind of missed the first Web 1 with the internet. We missed Web 2, which a lot of that happened in Silicon Valley. But we're not going to miss Web 3. And they've casted vision, and the mayor's gotten behind it, the people, the entrepreneurs. So many people like Bernie Moreno have laid a blockchain foundation for Cleveland. Nashville is absolutely amazing. Nashville has infrastructure. They've held infrastructure for creatives and for people in tech for years, and they've done an amazing job. There's amazing people and builders coming together, especially from the long haul in Nashville. However, Miami, with Mayor Suarez, with the entrepreneurs, the new companies that he's helped attract from Silicon Valley and from other parts of the country, companies that are moving here, innovators that are moving here. It's got a fertile ground for innovation and collaboration and new infrastructure. And we're believing that the more successful, the more we're able to do here, that's going to touch some of these other cities that we love so much and believe in.
Yeah, and you mentioned the Web3 and moving into that area of knowledge. This is a brand, I mean, it's not brand new because it's been moving in this trajectory for a while. But it's definitely more personal ownership of your information. It's more being able, it's moving into the blockchain, moving into NFTs. Now, I asked Eric this last week, Eric Skeldon with Kingdom Warriors. I asked him this last week.
Wow.
So I'd like to have you kind of break it down just a little bit. What is Web3 and what are NFTs, non-fungible tokens?
Okay. Yeah. So just a basic, even to wind it back a little bit, what's Web 1? Web 1 is like read. You could read things on the internet by connecting to the internet. You could read things you couldn't have read before, had access. Web 2 is you could read and write. social media, you can communicate, you can build community. Web3 is really owning your data. It's decentralization. It's, Web3 to me is kind of like the way you would see back in the day before either of us were physically here was we had there was England was a great force in the world. And you could even trace it back to Rome too, and different things. But England was a great force, but there was people that got tired with the same old, and didn't want to bow down to certain thrones that didn't line up with their conscience. So a great decentralization in that context was when they came and started the United States of America, Declaration of Independence. Many of those principles, freedom principles and liberty principles, align up with Web3. It's a demonopolization of data, but also, different options. Different options. Many people have said, hey, there's only this option or this option. Are you a Democrat or Republican? Are you this or that? What do you know? It's more about authenticity, individuality, but also independence can only take you so far. It's interdependence. It's the opportunity for different owners to collaborate together. Different communities. It's the collaboration of communities also.
Yeah,
And yeah, and then yeah,
and it's really awesome that you actually say that, because next week we're talking to Julio Caceres, who is the owner of Bricks, where he actually talks about selling individual pieces of a house. So in that same concept, looking at what you were just saying, it's little individual pieces of the larger stake. So really awesome point to make. Thank you.
amazing. Yeah, and then NFTs is NFTs is a technology. Like my friend Amber says from Minting Music, she says NFTs isn't a thing. It's like a box you could put something in. And it's whatever you want it to be. NFTs, non-fungible tokens. It's an amazing technology that it's a smart contract. It's something that, yeah. So I definitely recommend people doing their own diligence and learning, because even what a paper contract would have been back in the day, or even now, think about what a phone was, a non-smartphone versus a smartphone, what a regular flip phone could do versus what an actual um, smartphone can do. And that's where we're going to be going with contracts and things like that. So there's definitely some underlying NFT technology is not just art, music, and all that stuff. There's an underlying technology um, that from the smart contract standpoint, that's extremely important.
Yeah, and there's some. I mean, when you look at NFTs, or when I look at NFTs, like I'm looking at the originally when we got started on this journey, I had no clue what NFTs were, and over the last about a year, I've really started to get this understanding of what it is. And everyone's like, man, it's the ugliest piece of art you'll ever see, that you never want to hang on your wall. And I'm like, but the value is found in what someone else is willing to pay. And what that also means is someone is willing to acquire for themselves, because it's not just the art, it's not just the monkey, right, or the digital token, but it's all the stuff that comes with it. So we've seen, like Kingdom Warriors, for instance, from last week, he was talking about how it's education. It's pushing out the messaging of what that looks like and how people can save money versus, or the education that comes along with it, the community that comes along with it, the purpose. This thing is turning into a movie. This is turning into, they have music scores now being made off of these NFT concepts. So it's a lot bigger than that. But you have been working very diligently to bring together this community, because it's like John Mediana, and you say it all the time, and you probably say it a lot better than I do. Uh, when was the first time or the last time everyone was on the same level going into a project?
Yeah, when John says it, change changed my perspective and has become a connecting point is he said at one of the first major meetups in Nashville, he said, "When's the last time we all got to be beginners together at something?"
Yeah.
And or when's the last time we all got to be beginners together? And yeah, so that's it's people taking their expertise, taking their former what they were doing or what they've been excelling at, and bringing it into this conversation, bringing it into this new platform, this new opportunity. It's a humbling point for many people.
Yeah, and you know, in bringing this community together, you really have a unique connector skill set that I think is lost by a lot of people, and that's really what you bring to this community that I have seen over the last year and a half or so. And in that is a very strong leadership trait that I think a lot of people don't have. So, in your perspective, what is your leadership style, your leadership perspective?
Man, you know, um, I think not to be generic, but serve. The things that helped save my life um, early on was like, or it helped keep me alive was getting outside of myself, picking up a phone, saying, "How are you doing?" Cleaning a table, washing some dishes, making some coffee for others. Those are the principles that help keep me alive. And if you ever hit a low, sometimes that's the great place to just serve, smile at somebody, pick, that that relational standpoint. There's a responsibility to leadership, but like John Maxwell says, ultimately it's influence. So it's what do you do? You're always most likely you're almost always, if not always, a few steps ahead of somebody else. So sometimes you can get so caught up with the leaders and the people that are leap years, seems like leap years ahead of you, but there's always somebody that you can help pull up, and always making sure that you're accountable. I would say that accountability, that relational but accountability standpoint, the things that you do when nobody else is looking, also those things that you can layer, making sure that you're taking personal inventory and you're doing the things that so even what looks like your success doesn't catch up and bite you in the butt, because you start to catch up to your conscience. So making sure that you're always checking on yourself and around others that can also help check on you too is important.
Yeah, and I think a large portion of that is as it says in the law of connectability, right? It talks about being able to listen and hear, because a lot of leaders want to be heard. They just want to speak to be heard. They don't want to, they don't want others to respond a lot of the time, which is doing leadership wrong. But in the law of connectability, we talk about hearing, listening, because you need to be able to hear what other people's skills are. Maybe they don't know themselves that that's where
Yeah,
they are good at something, and they need to be reminded or told for the first time by you, hey, I think you'd be really good at this. Why don't we try to plug you in over here? And that's what I've seen a lot by you, is being able to plug and play, keep people into positions. We just wrapped up the 15, what is it, 15 irrefutable laws of growth.
15 invaluable
Invaluable.
laws of growth. Yes, sir.
Oof, that's horrible. I should actually know that. We just wrapped that up, and it was amazing because the type of people that we had in that mastermind group, people that in their
Yeah,
own right, I mean, Grammy award winners, people in the publishing industry, people in the clothing industry, just these people who
yeah,
in their own right, huge powerhouses, but they came to it with a heart of a child, right? With the ear of a child, to be able to listen and understand what someone else is bringing to the table. And I think every single person left better because of that, in my opinion.
yeah. Yeah, there's a book called The Third Option. Um, about it's the premise is about race relations, but is the principle is choosing to find what you have in common with somebody, seeing past the surface to where you could say, "Oh, I'm from Cleveland. I'm from Ohio. You're from the Carolinas. That's our difference. Where it's different, but we're both from the United States. We're both passionate about leadership. We're both finding that third thing instead of looking at the one or two things that differentiate, which it's good to be different, but finding that, you know, don't always go off of somebody's first look at you. Be willing to see past the faces to get to the heart. And if you can connect to what somebody's passionate about, if they're a sports team, or ask a question, hey, what kind of music do you like? Oh, hey, I noticed you're rocking that brand. Hey, I love that brand. My mom loves that brand. Da, da, da. You find now all of a sudden you open up the door to a real connection, to an opportunity to have a conversation that without that third option, you most likely would not have been able to have.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of it gets lost in relational, right? The relational value, because you and I have relationship, we know each other, we have invested into one another. You and I can have deeper conversations than my neighbor across the street because I don't know him like that. I know you better like that, where I can say, "Hey, Brandon, you're doing great. You're doing a wonderful job. However, there's some areas that I think you could be better." And you know that by me coming to you like that, that it's going to be said out of love. It's going to be said out of wanting to have you elevate your pursuit. So the relational element is huge, but we're already kind of tracking down this road of the resiliency of what resiliency looks like in our lives. But Brandon, to you, how do you define spiritual resilience?
When That's a great question. And probably the willingness to keep going when it doesn't make sense. The Yeah.
Wow.
And the ability to hold on to what you can't see, to believe so much that whether it's your vision, the one who made you, whatever that focal point, being able to focus in on that and not what you're currently seeing because of your circumstance. And continually be able to run that track, not just sprint, but look at it as it's a marathon.
Man, dude, that is fire right there. I mean, because when you think, spirit, spiritual, everyone tries to make it the one thing, and that's kind of this journey that we're on, right? This is the journey that I have chosen to be placed upon, is trying to identify different ways of how people can define the same terms, and it's really funny because so many people, each individual comes up with a different way of seeing the same grouping of words. So with you, willingness to continue in pursuit of something you can't see, what are some ways that you build it in yourself?
And I'd say definitely prayer, meditating on truth, on the word, Proverbs. I say, there's a man named Pedro Adeo who does the 31. He's a mentor of Eric Skeldon's. Um, that's helped lay a framework for success. And Pedro Adeo does the 31-day wisdom challenge at the start of every year. And I was able to plug into it this past year for 2020, the past year for 2022, and it changed my life. They said, you could read a proverb a day, all these different leaders, business leaders, faith leaders, life leaders, all speaking. And they were going through a proverb every day. And they said, well, at most, there's 31 days in a month. So you can go through a proverb every day, chapter of Proverbs every day, every month. And for most people, if they did that for 12 months in a row, you go through the book of Proverbs, which is the book of wisdom, authored by Solomon, who was the son of David, that was the king of Israel, that was one of the richest, if not the richest man of all time, wealthiest man of all time, leaders and kings. And so that's a huge, I would say that that exercise has been huge. And also staying connected, staying, joining those kind of like mastermind groups and networking with people who are farther along than I am, having mentors and just making sure I take the time and putting it into practice also is important. Challenging myself is important.
So then, in keeping with that theme, continuing down that team element, that teaming concept, how do you build spiritual resiliency within the teams that you now operate in? Because between the masterminds and then the individual client type individual that you have, how do you build it within them or just that team?
Yeah, that's another great one. Just practicing these principles and all that in what I'm doing, just continuing to practice what I'm learning and who I'm becoming in every circumstance that I'm in, and using the tools that I've been given and using the wisdom, having and asking for wisdom, asking every day for wisdom is key. The people that I know and know of that are really changing this world and have longevity, they ask for wisdom every day. Like their number one prayer is wisdom. And that was the prayer that Solomon prayed that helped get him the kingdom, that helped get him all that access, because he asked for wisdom to lead the people. And so I would say that would be being conscious, not just running into meetings, doing my best not to just run into meetings, doing my best to give myself some time in the morning before my first calls, to just get in the zone. And yeah, that's I would say that's helpful, and just learning, continuing to learn from what other people are doing and not beating myself up on where I missed it, but keep letting that be, like, being willing to correct myself, but be gentle, like not let that stop me from doing the next thing if I didn't handle a situation right, or if I didn't respond right, or if I didn't react right. And pointing to resources is really important also. Is I'm not the source, I'm a resource. And hopefully becoming a resource like center, and building that within the community that we're building and communities we're connecting. However, it's being able to point to the people with the solutions, is a key also, to not making everybody feel like they're dependent on you, but just being able to point to the tools, the resources, and the people that can help them solve what they need to solve.
Teaching people to be independent, but at the same time teaching them that they bring value to themselves and they should also continue to pursue it themselves.
Yeah, like that's, people's numbers. Like I believe 2023 is going to be a time where it's not going to be as impressive how many people you got at a concert or at an event, or how many clients you have. It's going to be what's your impact.
Hmm.
What's your impact? And more leaders and more influencers, they like and they see the value in going to bigger events and being part of these bigger circles and everything, but they really want friendship. They want community. They want a lifestyle, and they're not necessarily all about putting all their like stuff on Front Street. They tend to like the smaller. They seem to be becoming more attracted to the smaller circle, like-minded, like connecting. Those iron sharpens iron kind of circles are becoming more and more attractive to the leaders we're seeing in Web3 and music, tech, media, real estate, across the board. That's what this 2020 Web3 is starting to look like.
Well, and I think a lot more people are about the social impact of what they can join alongside. That's why I waited for so long to buy an NFT. Was I was waiting on an NFT that actually spoke to me about their mission that they were trying to pursue, and found that in Kingdom Warriors for myself. You're right when you say that it really comes down to what kind of an impact people are having. They're not worried about the size, they're not worried about the size of the venue, the number of tickets, but where they can come alongside social values in producing, like with Sea Turtles, right? Or any of those
Yeah.
organizations that we have started to see. What's the one with the Boonie dog or the island dog?
Oh, okay. So the Bahamian pot cakes, Matthew Matlack is doing a phenomenal job with. He's from Sea Turtle Creative, a marketing agency, social impact company. That the Bahamian pot cake project is really shining a light on the neglected dogs in the Bahamas, and kind of the kind of dogs that they throw out at the end of the day, and helping people have more compassion. But he's also building an ecosystem that's bridging the gap between first and third world nations, like the United States and in the Bahamas. So he's got the Bahamian Hotcakes project, but he's also got one that's geared towards the environment and the coral reef, and he's also has one that's about promoting the artists of the Bahamas. Also, these amazing people, and helping people understand and connect to those kind of artists and those amazing gems as well, treasures. And like John Mediana calls NFTs, he calls them newfound treasures.
Yeah, hearing that the other night when Future Man Roy Wooten said that, I was like, ooh, newfound treasure.
Yeah.
That's just NFTs, newfound treasures. Absolutely amazing. And linking all of this together, Brandon, I think is a very strong story that you have. Uh, your testimony behind. So talking about spiritual resiliency and what it looks like and how you increase it in your life. Can you give us a moment when you had to rely solely on spiritual resiliency in order to make it through something that you were going through?
Yeah. I was working in one of my dream jobs at the time at an organization representing one of my all time favorite people, their legacy. And I just kept feeling the call to learn more about this Web3, this NFT movement, blockchain movement. And I was challenged by a mentor, an advisor, say, hey, you really should look into bringing this community together here in Music City, in Nashville at the time. And so I felt I needed to really get my boots on the ground, not just be an online host and connecting with people online. I needed to see what's happening. And to buy those plane tickets, I remember applying for a media pass, starting a website. These things I didn't know how to. I didn't know. I knew about the media pass side, but having a website to prove that I had a media site, leveraging the relationships to the point where I remember laying on my bed. I believe I had already bought the ticket to Miami for the conference, and I wake. I I get a thing back that says, "Hey, we're not taking any more media acceptance or anything like that." And I said, "Okay, God, I'm gonna just lay on this bed. I'm going regardless, but you're gonna have to open up this door." And went to the back of the boat, proverbially, and took a nap. Felt to get up. I don't know how many minutes passed by, but I get up and I go and check my phone, and the CMO, the marketing person at that organization, hits me up and goes, "Hey, we'll be glad to have you. Got your pass rocking, and we got you on a pass and media pass." So thanking God the whole way, but it was like getting on that plane, not even knowing where I'm going to stay. You do what you got to do, as you go, and it was just definitely walking into that whole new crypto Web3 blockchain world at this conference that led to a journey around the world, around at least around the country, and we're opening up opportunities to the rest of the world. But yeah, that led to a traveling journey of that literally changed my life. But it was I had to do it by faith. I had to do it not knowing what it was going to look like, and each step I couldn't let any non-information or lack of information keep me from continuing to take the next step.
Yeah. So it's just sitting, waiting, and then jumping. I think that we always
Yeah.
forget that there's action that has to come. Even when, it's God that's speaking to us, you still have to act out and act upon. There's a lot of opportunities within the Bible, or a lot of passages that actually refer to a lot of this, where it's, before the miracle, before something happens, it's go and do, go and wash, go and see, go and and so there's all this, but then there's also come and see. So because of all that, that's action, and we don't always act on that action all the time.
And once you get moving, it's like a roller coaster. So first you start out, you're in the line at the amusement park. You're standing in the line. You keep taking steps forward till you get in. Now you get locked in safely. You get the harness around you, and then until the thing starts going. But you're going slowly up this hill. And you could either enjoy that with your arms crossed and complaining and why aren't we moving faster, da, 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 or you could just start. The ones who are having the most fun are the ones who start screaming and putting their hands up, having a good time, anticipating. They'll usually have their hands up before then you hit that thing, and then you're off and running. It don't take much for those shouts and for the hands up and the smile on your face. You could either do that clenched, like feeling the fear, or you could do it in faith and be like, yo, I know I'm going to get to end this course. I know, but I'm going to enjoy it while I'm here. I'm going to experience it. And then what do you do? Like for me, it was getting back in line and going home to Nashville, then going to Denver. ETH Denver was next. Then it was, that's where the saying, if Woodstock and Wall Street had a baby, welcome to Web3. We start, and then it was next one, so that journey, those roller coaster rides never ended.
Wow. Well, I mean, that definitely puts it into a whole new perspective. Folks, I told you that BrandonDavid was connected in so many different ways and was bringing people together. You've heard me talk about Grammy Award winners now, with future man Roy Wooten of the Bella Fleck and the Flecktones. You've heard him talk about NFTs, about sea turtles. You've heard him talk about NFTs of saving the Bohemian.
No, the Bahamian pot cakes.
Bohemian.
Yeah, it's a dog.
Yeah.
And there's a cool story. There's a very cool story behind that whole culture. And,
Oh,
and there's some symbolism.
we're going to have him
Yeah,
on at some point in time as well. So it'll be pretty cool.
beautiful.
He's been connecting John Maxwell, or Maxwell Leadership Group members and coaches together to kind of take this community and come alongside them. You've heard him talk about even the fashion industry down in Miami, and some of the individuals that are coming out of this group that are really up and coming in the fashion world. Folks, BrandonDavid is connecting individuals, and it's nothing about him. It's everything that he has inside of him that he continues to portray, because the person that you hear on this podcast is the same person talking to CEOs on a daily basis, talking to chief operating officers, talking to marketing gurus. It's the same person no matter who it is, because it's the passion and the mission that he comes with. And I know that in order to build that, Brandon, you had to have books. You had to be investing in yourself through different books and different programs. What are some book recommendations that you have for us?
Absolutely. Thanks for asking. This one right here, 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, by John C. Maxwell. Um, Also, there's a book by Dr. Miles Monroe called The Fatherhood Principle that John Maxwell did the foreword to. That the Fatherhood Principle is a powerful, powerful book. Um, Economics wise, there's a book that stands out to me called The Price of Everything. I forget the author, but The Price of Everything, very good economics book. And the Word, the Bible, that's definitely if that causes like a knee-jerk reaction in you, if you're listening to that, don't worry. Used to cause the same thing for me, but I'm not afraid to read that book anymore. It's key. There's so much wisdom, so much life in the word. So incorporating that into your life, you could have all these other books, but if you don't got that one, you're missing something extremely, extremely important that you have access to. So I challenge you to be willing to go past your preconceived notions and not just do contempt prior to investigation, but investigate, learn, grow, because these truths are timeless. 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, timeless. Fatherhood Principle by Dr. Miles Monroe, timeless. Price of Everything book, timeless. That Third Option book, I've heard the author, but I'm looking to read that too in 2023 as well. And got tons of other books on my list also. I'm looking forward to getting into.
Well, BrandonDavid, everyone. Now, Brandon, do you have any final words for us? Do you want to leave us with some parting words?
Hey, hey, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. And as that timeless man Joshua said, don't be afraid. Only be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Be willing to give up what you cannot keep to gain what you can never lose. Because it's not just about you. There's a generation, there's a people, there's so many persons that are waiting for you to unleash what you have, to give what you got. So go get it.
And I can't think of a better way to be able to end today. So thank you, BrandonDavid, for investing into us by giving us just a little piece. Now, if people want to connect with you outside of this podcast, how can people get a hold of you?
Yeah, I believe BrandonDavid at Cryptan Labs, CRYPTAN Labs.com. BrandonDavid at Cryptan Labs. They can also, Cleveland Nashville is still a good email, ClevelandNashville at gmail.com. It's my classic. And yeah, and reach out to Nathan. He'll get you connected. He'll
Absolutely.
connect us.
And we'll put that email address, we'll put the website, we'll put everything into the description for everyone so you have that. But also, if you have any questions for him about NFTs, about how to get connected to some of these individuals, the mastermind classes that he's talking about, all of that, very easy to connect with him to be able to go through that. Now, today's episode is only possible thanks to my friend and producer G Frazier with 369sounddesign.com. Jeff has the hardest job in the entire world because he gets to try to make me and Brandon sound good. So we are blessed by the entire team here at the Wartime Leadership Podcast. Be blessed.